Adam Schefter had a lot to say about the New York Giants when it comes to their head coach search. He named a couple of candidates. He talked about if this is going to be a job that people want, and he gave some information on Brian Daboll and what happened there. A lot to discuss. Before we do that, though, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We put out multiple free videos every single day, and we are on our way to 100,000 subscribers. The next milestone, 97,000. If you love the Giants, you want to help us get there, hit that sub button right now. This is New York Giants Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green. Appreciate everybody for stopping by. And I want to say thank you to every single person that tuned into our coverage yesterday. It was an awesome day getting to hang out with all of you for almost 3 hours. We put up 4 videos on the channel. You guys deserve it. So thank you very much. Let's start with this. Adam Schefter was asked about what does he think about the opening for the New York Giants. And he went on to say, this is going to be a desirable job across the NFL. Because there have been some thoughts. Do people want to coach here? Do they not? Schefter kind of puts that to bed. Exciting stuff for Big Blue fans. He said this, quote, this is going to be a desirable job. You're talking about what usually is a stable organization, even though it hasn't been in recent years. A blue blood organization where you're in the New York market. They have a quarterback. They have Malik Nabers. They have Skattebo. They have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the football. So that's going to be a desirable job for whichever head coach they go after. This makes me feel a little bit better about where the New York Giants are right now. And I absolutely agree with a lot of what Schefter said. There's some things that I think a head coach will look at when taking a peek behind the curtains of the New York Giants, deciding if they want that job, that will stand out to them and say, it is a good job. And look, I don't think Joe Schoen has done a good job here. I think he should be fired. But there have been some moves that I think have helped the New York Giants that he has made. Connor Hughes, who works for SNY and covers the New York Giants, kind of echoing what Adam Schefter said. He said, this isn't like when the Giants hired Pat Shurmur or Joe Judge. It's nothing like the situation they had with Brian Daboll either. Those teams were void of talent, cap-strapped, aging, or some combination of the three. Yes, any NFL job is coveted. There are only 32 of them, but not all are desirable. The Giants' vacancy, created when the team fired Daboll on Monday morning, is desirable. Jaxson Dart is the quarterback. Malik Nabers is the receiver. The defense, while woefully underperforming this year, still has talent. Quote, I love it. A high-profile offensive coach said when asked by SNY if the Giants' job intrigues him. Quote, F yes, I would want that. That's among the reasons why Daboll's departure was the only move ownership made. So good stuff to hear there from Adam and Connor. Giants fans have been asking, Marshall, who is going to want to work with Joe Schoen? And, I thought about it yesterday as I got home, and I tried to take the emotion out of the situation. And there's things here that are going to make it a desirable spot. You have a career franchise left tackle. You have a quarterback that looks like he can be the leader of a franchise. You have a young rookie running back that showed promise. You have Malik Nabers. You have all of those things. But I do worry about someone still wanting to work with Joe Schoen. Not work for the New York Giants, but wanting to work with Joe Schoen. Because he is a guy that's been in the NFL a while. He's made some enemies along the way. Do people want to work with him? Or is there like a wild world where maybe the head coach decides the fate of Joe Schoen? I thought this was interesting from Adam Schefter. He was asked if he thought Joe Schoen should be fired on his podcast. And he said, I think here's the deal. That'll be up to the head coaches that they hire whether they want to keep him or not. That is very newsworthy to me. Adam Schefter essentially saying the head coach they hire will decide if Joe Schoen is kept or not. That is a little bit weird to me. I also think that this goes hand in hand with what we talked about on the show this morning, where we showed you this tweet, and I read it to you. Ian O'Connor, longtime New York journalist, Now, columnist says, I don't believe Joe Schoen is certain to be the Giants GM next year. They needed someone to get things going on the search, especially with John Mara dealing with his illness. Ownership will make the final call on the coach in January. Ownership will make the final call on the coach in January, when I'd expect Schoen to be reviewed again. So Adam Schefter is saying the head coach could decide if Joe Schoen's there. Ian O'Connor is saying that ownership is going to hire the coach, and then Joe Schoen will be reviewed again about having his job. And this goes right on with what Paul Schwartz of the New York Post said. Monday, late morning, Mara and Tisch had a conversation on the phone, and together they agreed it was time for a change. They called in their GM, Joe Schoen. And informed him of their decision. So that's Paul Schwartz, that's Adam Schefter, and that's Ian O'Connor, at least hinting that Joe Schoen might not be that safe and he might not be here long term. Not saying he won't be. It still feels like he will be, but there is a world where he isn't, which makes me wonder, how much power does he have? The Giants are telling you that they trust Joe Schoen to lead the head coach search, but they didn't trust him enough to make the decision on the head coach that they wanted the front office to make. The front office fired Brian Daboll. Why didn't Joe Schoen make that call? Is Joe Schoen allowed to make that call? I don't know what's going on in the front offices of the New York Giants. I do know that there should be a cleaning of house, and Joe Schoen should be fired. And if you want that to happen, if you want the Giants to move on from Schoen, get a new GM to pair with this new head coach, hit that thumbs up icon for me right now. Adam Schefter also talked about some coaching candidates loosely that he thinks could be in the market or in the running that the New York Giants could look at to be their next head coach. He said this, quote, people are throwing out names. I just don't know how much that means. Right now, we could throw out names, and inevitably, we're going to be excluding certain candidates. There are certain coaches out there with New Jersey connections. And then he named two defensive coordinators, one in the AFC, one in the NFC. Anthony Campanelli, the Jaguars defensive coordinator, and Jeff Hafley, the Packers defensive coordinator. Peter Schrager mentioned Jeff Hafley yesterday as a name, which we told you on our video yesterday. That is why you subscribe. So he mentions those two guys. And then he laters to go on and mention Antonio Pierce and Steve Spagnuolo as names to monitor as well, saying that they have both coached with the Giants, and Antonio Pierce was a player for the New York Giants. This was my favorite part of the Adam Schefter podcast, though, saying this. When they hire somebody, my guess and sense is it's somebody that we probably haven't even brought up in the end. That would be my guess in the end, because it's going to be a long search. What does Adam Schefter know? The windy meme immediately popped in my head when I watched that on my TV this morning. I think he's right. I think it's going to be a long search. I was asked by my guy Tyler Smith, former producer of this show, and Patrick Seaman, when I left work yesterday, following filming the video of 20 candidates the New York Giants could look at. They asked me, do you think the next Giants head coach was mentioned in your video today? I said, I think so. And then I watched Adam Schefter say today, it's probably a name that we're not even discussing right now. It's going to be a long, long search, and we're going to cover it every step of the way, better than anybody else on YouTube. That's why you subscribe. Before we bounce on out of here, though, I want to hear from you. Who do you want the Giants to hire? We also got to talk a little bit more about Brian Daboll and what Schefter said. But first, let me know who you want the Giants to hire as their next head coach to pair with Jaxson Dart, and you should get his jersey today. Go to chatsports.com/Dart. That's chatsports.com/Dart. The holiday season is here. Get somebody a Jaxson Dart jersey. It's the only cool thing about the New York Giants right now. Adam Schefter talking about Brian Daboll, and he pretty much just wrapped up his thoughts by saying this. The issue, I think, was they kept running the quarterback. He talked about how Jaxson Dart had been in the blue concussion tent in protocol 4 times, and it was the 4th time that he officially had a concussion. He went on to say that he thought that Brian Daboll, when it comes to Brian Daboll and John Mara lost trust in Brian Daboll. And then you add on the fact that he's 20-40-1 as the head coach. You add on the fact that he has blown fourth quarter lead after fourth quarter lead after fourth quarter lead this season. 4 times on the road this year, the Giants have blown a double-digit lead. They have lost 11 games on the road. Look, I like Brian Daboll, the guy, and I feel bad for Brian Daboll that he had to lose his job yesterday. But I have a hard time saying they didn't earn that right to be fired as well. I also think John Mara wanted to fire Brian Daboll last year. I feel pretty vindicated on that as well. It was actually Joe Schoen, in my opinion, that Brian Daboll kept his job, because I went back and I watched that press conference that John Mara held last year after the season earlier this morning, and you could tell he was very complimentary of the roster. He was obviously talking about there's been free agents that they brought in that have helped, young talent they've brought in and helped. He never really said anything about the coaching staff. And there's been rumors out there that John Mara does not love how animated and emotional that Brian Daboll is on the sideline. And they've had meetings. They need to reel that in. So a lot of reasons Brian Daboll got fired. It is what it is, however you feel about it. We're on to the next head coach, and we're hopefully on to the next general manager. You can stay up to date on both of those things over on my Twitter. So give me a follow at @MarshallGreen_, and you can find me on Instagram as well, posting short form Giants content.